Recording in progress.
Okay, Roden, go ahead.
All right, thanks, Taylor. Good afternoon, everybody. I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Tompkins County Council of Governments. Do we have any needed changes to the agenda?
I will just mention that I have requested an amendment to the resolution that I offered at last meeting, and it's been tabled. It updates that particular resolution to reflect the current situation.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Robert. Any other?
Roden, this is Katrina,
Yeah.
and due to the change on that resolution, if you chose to entertain that, it would have to be amended and basically substituted because it's a totally different resolution.
Okay.
Okay?
I will offer that at the appropriate time.
Any other changes, additions, or deletions to the agenda? Hearing none, then we will move on to approval of our minutes from our January 23rd, 2025 meeting. Would someone like to move those minutes for approval?
I'll move.
Thank you, Rod. Do we have a second?
I'll
Second.
second it.
Thank you, Caitlin. Any comments, questions, or edits to those minutes? Going once, going twice, hearing no edits to the minutes. All in favor of approving them as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, our regular report from county administration.
So thank you very much. Just a couple of things that, sorry. A couple of things I just want to inform the team. Currently, in administration, we have 2 vacancies in terms of department heads. That's Commissioner for Whole Health and Commissioner for Social Services. Those positions have been posted. We also have vacancy at the Director of Finance. That position is also posted on the county website. We currently working on a daily basis on a homelessness issue, trying to get some shelter provision in place, and working on a daily basis with social services to get that process running. As we all know, we don't have any service provider in the county at the moment. So the county, through social services, is providing homeless shelter at the moment. The current Code Blue process will end on April 15th. So the old Key Bank facility being utilized at the moment is going to be vacated at the time. That being said, throughout the year, anytime the temperature falls below 32 degrees, we still have to house people. And anyone that comes to our door, in case the temperature falls below that number, will be required to provide them some form of a shelter. Usually we were using hotels then, but it's a process that we are reviewing to see what we will do in that case. But the Key Bank facility will be closed from use from April 15th. One of the things that was discussed that I believe is on my agenda or my radar to look into is the EMS services. I believe we have an engagement on next week to discuss it. There's a couple of elements that I need to dive into in terms of what exactly we want to do and the processes we want to move forward in. And my office will be able to really move into a specific direction based on the guidance that we will get from the committee, and that will also based on our conversation with Dan when we meet next week. The other items that we have here, we are keeping our eye on the federal changes and the funding implication on any of our programs. At the moment, we did take stock of all the programs that we are receiving federal funding. We don't have any direct impact yet, but we continue to monitor it and see if there's anything that will affect our operations. But at the moment, everything is as is, and we don't have any direct concerns at the moment. We're also working on with the HSC and publish the next round of funding application process, as has been done in multiple number of years now. So announcement for that will come out very soon, and then any agencies within your municipality that are interested in any applying to funding through HSC, that process will also be made public. And that is the list I have. So I don't have any other item unless anyone has any question. I'm happy to also provide a response if I can.
Thank you. Any questions for Corsa? Yeah, Joel.
Not so much a question as an observation. It just the audio is way better this way than it was with the sort of mic, shared mic situation. Yeah, we hear you loud and clear, and it was very, very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Yeah, Robert.
I have a question for Corsa, and this relates to something we're hearing from Enfield, and that is the timetable toward a funding model for 2026 for the rapid medical response system. As I will update, because I know Corsa is new to county government, that last year we received a very generous state grant from New York State that is funding the 2025 program for rapid medical response. But I don't think we necessarily can assume that's going to continue into 2026 unless there's something I don't know. But what we're hearing from Enfield is that we really want the program to continue, and if this requires some kind of cost sharing between the county government and local municipalities, that's something that probably should be resolved sooner rather than later. So I wondered from the administration standpoint where things stand toward determining funding for 2026 for that program.
Yeah, thank you very much. We haven't done a direct review of our funding model for 2026. We are beginning our budget process for 2026 from next month, and we've begun the process of gathering information. So I'll be meeting with Mike to see, to examine where we move forward in terms of funding packages, and we will relay that information to the committee as to how we plan moving forward with that approach. I think from what I have been informed so far, the program is receiving a lot of support from various municipalities, and I have heard calls to actually enhance that service. So we need to examine the cost implication of that enhancement, at what level, and how that will be, how that can be taken care of. So I'll provide the committee with an update as we move forward, and we start looking at the numbers and try to identify funding sources for that to move forward.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Rob.
Any other questions for Corsa? And I can't see folks around the oval, so if there's anyone there who has a question, just jump in, because if you're raising your hand, I'm not seeing it.
This is Dan Klein. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge the historic nature of Robert Lynch mentioning municipal cost sharing without coming out against it.
Other comments or questions? County administration. All right. Well, thank you much, Corsa. Moving on to reports and presentations. First up is an announcement of the opening of 2 grant cycles. I believe, is Shauna Stevenson there?
Yes, hello.
Hi, I'll hand it right off to you.
Thanks. Hold on one second. Let me get this mic. Hi, if we haven't met before, my name is Shauna Stevenson. I'm the Housing and Community Development Planner working with the Tompkins County Department of Planning and Sustainability. If I may begin with a few municipal opportunities shared from some of my colleagues first, and then I'll talk about the housing opportunities. That's okay?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. So first, I'd like to talk about the Natural Infrastructure Capital Program. It's a funding opportunity to protect natural systems that can help mitigate the adverse impacts of climate change with a focus on downstream flooding and sedimentation and establishing migratory corridors for plants and animal species. Eligible applicants are qualified public or not-for-profit entities that will be responsible for holding title or easement on the property, including future management and stewardship. The project must at least be partially located in specific areas outlined in the project guidelines. If you're interested in that, please contact Abigail Connor, environmental planner in our office. The second program I want to talk about is the Business Energy Advisor Program. You can receive expert advice and guidance on setting energy goals to improve building energy performance and reduce operational costs. This is open to businesses, nonprofits, and municipalities in Tompkins County considering new construction or major renovations. If you're interested in learning more about that, please contact Haley Delisle, Sustainability Coordinator in our office. And also wanted to let you know about the Southern Tier 8 Regional Board is offering 2 trainings on data collection and analysis. This is happening in April. There's two different events. One is focused on housing data and the other is on census data. These are available for municipal officials, local nonprofits, and others. You may have received an email from one of my colleagues, but I can forward the details and registration link to anyone who's interested in learning more. And now I'll talk about the housing, the 2 housing grants that just had open, that are just about to open. The first one is the Housing Affordability and Supportive Infrastructure Grant, also known as HASIG, the acronym. The grant cycle just opened on March 17th. And it is open until September 22nd of this year. And this grant provides up to $10,000 to municipalities in Tompkins County to hire consultants or add staff time to write or administer grants, improve zoning, identify potential sites for affordable housing development, develop infrastructure studies, and more. Applications are accepted on a rolling basis. And again, the deadline is September 22nd, 2025. And the county funds for that can support up to 90% of the cost. And then the second program is the Community Housing Development Fund. Round 25 is about to open on April 1st, and it's going to be available on our website. This grant provides funding for rehab and construction activity that creates new housing units affordable to low and moderate income households. Eligible applicants are 501c3 not-for-profit organizations, Tompkins County municipalities, public housing authorities, and private developers. This year's NOFA includes some changes from last year to better align with state funding programs, and the applications will be accepted through May 30th, so there's a 60-day application period this time. We also have a mailing list including local developers, so if you know of anyone who may be wanting to be added to that list, please let me know.
Well, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Shauna? Yeah, Joe.
Shauna, how much money is in the Community Housing Development Fund?
For what's available right now?
Presumably for the year, right?
Yeah, so each round there's $400,000 contributed from the partners, which include the county, City of Ithaca, and Cornell University. That's based on the Memorandum of Understanding, so it's a 7-year cycle that we work on. Every year that money is available. And then we also receive funding from the IDA Workforce Housing Policy. So we have some extra funds for that as well. And the total amount that each applicant can apply for is up to $400,000 for for-sale homes and $300,000 for rental units.
Thanks.
Other questions? Okay. Thanks again, Shauna. Darby, New York State wetland regulations.
Yes, thanks. Before I get into that, I know I got a question recently about the former Parks and Trails grant that the county sponsored. We do not have that for 2025, so do not expect to hear an announcement about the Parks and Trails. I know some of you still have some contracts that need to be finished up. I won't point at you. I'll do it from under my desk. You can't see me. But I'll be, oh yeah, you, Caitlin. I'll be following up with folks in April for some of the May contracts, and then I think a couple of them aren't finished up until June or July, but I'd like to get those wrapped up from 2024. So yeah, hi everybody, Darby Kiley here. At the last meeting in January, I mentioned that the state had changed their wetlands laws for how they regulate the wetlands, and so I just wanted to provide some updates because I reached out to your code enforcement officers and planners a few weeks ago, encouraging them to participate in some of the webinars that were offered, and if they haven't done that, to watch any of the recordings that are out there. And then to let me know if they had any questions, because I have been in touch with their outreach coordinator at DEC to say just how to improve their frequently asked questions, which I've noticed they have not posted yet, but do expect to see that sometime soon. So the memo in the agenda packet includes the links to the webinars and some other information that you and your staff can find. But just some of the quick overview, how the DEC changed how they mapped the wetlands, and that the new wetlands that are available are referred to as informational and not jurisdictional. So it used to be that for DEC to regulate a regulate a wetland, it had to be mapped. That is no longer the case. So they now have these informational maps that are available. But then what they regulate right now is the same acreage, so it's 12.4 acres and larger are the wetlands that they'll regulate, and then in 2028, that threshold will decrease down to 7.4 acres. So that's a change that doesn't go into effect until 2028. But then what's newly regulated, or what they call wetlands of unusual importance, and they had some categorized as this before, but now they have 11 newly established categories, and it's a long list of vernal pools, floodways, watersheds with significant flooding. And some of those are mapped out very specifically, and those maps are available. But it's kind of a new criteria, and so that's going to cause a lot of confusion and have some questions asked of DEC in the future. So that's just something to keep in mind. And the memo also notes that there were some draft general permits that are available for public comment. So they are doing some general permits on single-family homes, I think community-sized solar, a couple different topics, so that if someone came in to do a project that just was disturbing a state wetland, there's the general permit process to do that. So I'm anxious to see how that works for you guys in your different municipalities. So if you've watched the videos and have any questions, definitely feel free to pass those along to me. I have had a little communication with a couple of the planners, and they're also, I know the code enforcement officers have been in touch with the Department of State of how to work their process in with how the state is doing their jurisdictional determination. So it's some new stuff. I'm not sure. I haven't heard from anybody how it's going or not, other than Cornell owns a lot of land and has a lot of wetlands on them. So they're trying to figure out what they're going to do there. So I just wanted to bring that up. And if you haven't watched one of these videos, they're barely an hour long. So take a chance, take some time to do that. And especially your planning boards and zoning boards, you can use that as a training probably. It'd be worth their time to do that as well. So that's wetlands, and I'll move on just briefly. As some of you know, we had the total maximum daily load for phosphorus for Cuga Lake just came out in the fall, and there were some outreach events in the fall. In December, I think there was one at the Museum of the Earth at the Cuga Lake Watershed Network hosted, and so those videos are available. But the Water Resources Council, I'm changing my hat to Water Resources Council member, they have a couple different committees that want to work on some trainings and outreach, and so we put together a really brief survey. I think it's 7 questions that you can click on of if you want to hear more, learn more information about the TMDL. And so we sent that out as a link to clerks to send on to the board members, and then also to code enforcement officers and planners. Like I said, it's really simple, quick survey, and then that'll help the Water Resources Council develop whether it's training, I think we picture something for highway staff or CODA officers, and then maybe some fact sheets. I know we heard this from Stephanie Redmond of like, what about just a one pager on what a TMDL is, what do municipalities need to know? So I think we'll start developing some of that based on the feedback we get from you folks. So those are my 2 topics today, and I'll take any questions.
Questions for Darby? Yeah, Bob.
Yes, I questioned, what is the difference between a jurisdictional and an informational wetland? And I presume that the wetland rules that are coming down more than anything else are going to designate smaller patches of land as being classified as wetlands, hence development would have to be limited there.
Right, so if you propose to do a project on a parcel, and if you looked at the informational maps that are available, and it looks like there's a wetland on a parcel, you would submit that to DEC, and they would give you a jurisdictional determination. So say you're proposing a house, you'd show where that house is going to be on the lot, and if you're avoiding wetlands, they would give you a jurisdictional determination that no, you are not impacting wetlands, you don't need a permit, move ahead with what you're doing. But if it was going to impact a wetland, then they would say, yes, you have a wetland on the site, you need to get a delineation, either have DEC do it or pay for it on your own, and then figure out the permitting process from there. But I'm not DEC, so I can't quite answer. I mean, that's how I'm hearing that they're going to do the process.
And the question always arises is, how do you define a wetland? I know DEC defines them, but let's just say a farm field that hasn't been drained very well in recent years, would it be considered a wetland so you wouldn't be able to farm portions of it? How would that be determined?
They would come out and do a delineation, and they determine wetlands based on the hydrology, the vegetation, and the soils. So they would dig a soil pit and see what kind of soils they are. They look for signs of hydrology, and they would look at what plants are there.
I know this is a concern to our Enfield Planning Board. They're wondering what the new rules are going to, how they're going to impact the community, so that's why I ask.
Yeah, please encourage them to take a look at one of those recordings. They're all very similar. I think one of the last ones was geared towards municipal planning boards. The New York Planning Federation put one out, and so they answer some questions there that are specific to planning boards.
Good enough, thank you. And by the way, we are disappointed out in Enfield that we are losing the Parks and Trails grant. They have been very beneficial to us in recent years.
Talk to your legislators.
Okay.
I think we had Joel. Did you have your hand up?
I did.
Joel, then Mark, then Caitlin.
I mean, my question's almost changed since Bob spoke, but the survey that you're doing, you already told us it's going to inform to how we proceed. But what is what's the driver? I guess I would say. What do the municipalities have to contribute to the TMDL picture?
Yeah, not a lot. And that's actually why we kind of wanted to put something together, is just more of a basic understanding of what a TMDL is, and not as much the municipalities have their stormwater regulations that do play into the TMDL, but they're not on the hook for a lot, but there is just other practices, ditch maintenance, there's specific things for developed land, for septic systems, for agriculture. So I think we just wanted to put some materials together that could inform a municipal official. If someone came into your office and says, what's the town doing for Cayuga Lake? You could say, well, here's what the TMDL is and here's what we do.
Okay, and then to back to Bob's point, it's my understanding, having attended one or more of those webinars, that the change in the process of delineation where we no longer relies on the maps is not a mandate that the local municipalities discern where delineation is necessarily needed.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah, it's the risk of the landowner if they choose not to get a delineation or a jurisdictional determination. So they take on that responsibility. It's not up to the town to be enforcing the state's regulations.
Thanks.
Mark?
Just a quick follow-up on what Bob and Joel were just commenting. So all determinations are made by a field delineation going forward. Is that right? And then
Yeah, they'll start with a, just a desktop map review is my understanding of how they can take a look at it. So because DEC will be able to look at soils and different layers just on their mapping program that will give them an idea if there would be possibly a wetland on the site. And then if there's a reason to say, yeah, there probably is, then they would need to do a delineation.
Okay.
No longer driven by the mapping.
Right, because the mapping was terrible.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
But to that point, does a wetland determination have to be covered by the informational map? Does it have to be within that mapping?
I'm going to say no, because they have these wetlands of unusual importance that they might not put on a map. So like a vernal pool might not end up on the informational maps. So there might be some other things that prompt them to say, yeah, just because it wasn't on the map doesn't mean it's not still a wetland on site.
Would they even are they going to be updating the map so now that we have better information from whatever?
That's I have had that question. How often are they updating them? Because there's new LiDAR data probably every decade or so. So would that be an update to that? I am going to ask that question.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, it seems like a lot of, especially smaller things like vernal pools would just go by the wayside or whatever, not be noticed. And so that it would just depend on good faith participation by the public or contractors. I don't know.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Caitlin?
Yeah, and Darby, I apologize because I know you don't work for the DEC, but have they been pushing out any information about how long they think this kind of delineation process would take for them to execute? Because I know I've been sitting on some contracts for DEC, and I know that different people are the ones who handle the contracts that do the site work. But this seems like a huge increase in their workload. And so, with contractors and when we're interacting with the public, I think it would be helpful if they've pushed any information out, which I haven't seen them say anything specific on timelines. It would be helpful to be able to push that information out also, because that's going to change property owners' ability to undertake projects.
Yes, agreed. And so the way the law is written or the regulations are written, once you submit a jurisdictional determination request, they have 90 days to respond to you. And once the 90 days has passed, there's a whole process of you can notify us within 10 days. And if we still don't respond, then that means for 5 years, you're all set with it being a no, that there are no wetlands on the parcel. But then, so if you get a yes, then the timeline for doing a delineation, I have no idea. I haven't heard anything from anyone on that yet. I think if you're a bigger developer, it would be in your interest to just go out and pay for that to happen.
Great.
I mean, well, I don't really want to say that, but scratch that.
Yeah, a lot of unknowns in this. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I definitely am not the one to answer the questions, but more just alerting, just waving my hands that there's something new. Great. Thanks.
I'm sure if anyone thinks of a question for Darby that they wish they'd asked, she will happily respond via email. Great. All right. Next item is a discussion on a proposed countywide 911 addressing. I know that there had been some questions about this previously. I don't know if there's anyone in chambers who is going to give us an update on that. Taylor, I guess I'm looking at you.
Yeah, I was pulling the microphone down. That was just requested at the last meeting. I think that you guys wanted to take a poll to determine if municipalities were interested in that before we requested that someone come to speak on it.
Well, I'll open it up for discussion. Do we want to continue to name streets locally, or do we want the county to take over all of it? Yeah, Mark.
Roden, the county does have, does take a lot of responsibility in addressing with Catty Ann Campbell. And so I guess this may, I think I was tasked with reaching out to Mike to see if he had any ideas. So that's my drop. I don't think I did that. So maybe we should do that next time or follow up and see, but open to other ideas.
Anyone opposed to waiting on feedback from DOER before we discuss it? All right, ball firmly back in your court, Mark.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries. 2025 update to the TCOG webpage. Looking forward to seeing it. Who is maintaining that? It's on the county website. And what are our intentions with respect to an update?
Hi, so that's me. There's a kind of brief memo in the agenda packet. And basically what happened is in late 2024, the website transferred. And so we had a lot of old information that pre-populated onto the TCOG webpage that was no longer applicable. So that will all be filed in the Laserfiche for Tompkins County here in the Clerk of the Legislature office. So that information will remain available if it's requested, but it's not going to be on the main page for TCOG anymore. So really what we need from TCOG members is to just have subcommittees reach back out to me and provide me with information on membership, meeting dates, and any reports or minutes that you have from meeting. And I can upload those as soon as possible. And I encourage you to take a look at the links in the memo and see what our new webpage looks like.
Help me out, Taylor. I'm on the county website and I'm just looking for where we landed.
Yeah, so if you go right to the county website, then you're going to go to Government Resources and County Legislature. And then you're going to scroll down to where you see in this section on the right-hand side.
Okay.
And Tompkins County Council of Governments is there below. And that's the new webpage. And then about midway under Resources is where you'll see meetings, and that takes you to the meeting portal where you can find our agendas, minutes, etc. Actions and resolutions I'll update after every meeting, and it will also have motions in there. And then the subcommittees page is kind of the direction that comes from the memo, which is where I'm asking subcommittee leaders to help me fill that information in for you folks.
Great. So if all the committee chairs or subcommittee chairs would let Taylor know which of our membership sits on which committee, that'll be great. Okay. Well, thank you, Taylor, for all of that.
Yeah.
Subcommittees, starting with cybersecurity and municipal information technology.
Yeah, not much to report this month, only because I've been really busy with some other stuff, but we're talking about doing a best practices, probably webinar or maybe in person, depending on what the consensus of folks would be, and working with county IT to put that together, since they're a much bigger fish than any individual one of us. They're much more on the cutting edge of how we can better be prepared to deal with the online environment. So look for something coming. I think we'll probably aim for maybe the fall, since summers get really hectic and it feels like spring is upon us already. So we'll keep you updated.
Thank you, Caitlin. Anybody have questions or comments for Caitlin? All right. Energy Subcommittee.
No updates. We're still on hold. I think I reported last time that we're finally slowly moving forward on community choice aggregation. So once that gets more fully in play, I'll give an update. But nothing right now.
All right. Thanks, Rod. Transportation.
Yes, a couple updates, and TCOG members may be aware of one of them or both. TCAT and its unionized drivers and mechanics dodged a bullet. This past Saturday, they announced tentative agreement on a new labor contract. It hasn't been ratified yet. I don't know the exact date or times for the ratification vote, but both sides seem to be optimistic that the drivers and mechanics will approve it, and it would eliminate the possibility of a strike by TCAT's drivers, which was a real possibility up until this past weekend, because as March 12th, the UAW, which is the union representing TCAT's workers, reported that 84% of TCAT's drivers and mechanics had authorized a strike. They didn't say exactly when they were going to go on strike, but they gave the union leadership that chance to call for a strike. It wasn't necessary, pending ratification, of course. Details of the tentative pact that was announced last Saturday have not yet been released. During negotiations, according to media reports, the union had sought cost of living adjustments, assurance of a living wage for all TCAT employees, and modifications to mandatory work schedules. So we'll keep track of that to see where that is resolved. But I think that most likely we have averted a TCAT strike. The other thing I wanted to mention, and this is something that we'll know more about in the next month, is that Tompkins County announced this past week the unveiling of what they call Tompkins Transportation Scout. And it's best described as a multifaceted program. Key to it is an app that you would put on your smartphone that would help you, I guess, in planning your travel plans. Deciding, I want to go from point A to point B, how can I do it? I like to bike, I like to walk, I like to drive, I like to take the bus. I guess it would provide some guidance. They're going to have a rollout on April 17th at the History Center, which, as most people know, is the old Tompkins Trust Company building down on the Commons on what used to be Tioga Street. There'll be a rollout from 4 to 6 p.m. on April 17th, and they're going to show how this system is going to be used. And I tell you, from reading the release, I wasn't exactly certain of how that's all going to work, so I hopefully will be there and be able to learn, and I would encourage other people to go and learn as well. And that's my report.
Anybody have any questions for Bob?
Rob, is there going to be some sort of tutorial that people can sign up for if they want to participate in the Scout thing?
Well, I'll tell you, the news release that came out last week about this said that there will be a demonstration down at the History Center to show you how to use that. I don't know if there's going to be any online tutorial, but we may learn more. And I'm hoping that at that that rollout, there'll be some information. There is a website. If you go to the news release, which is posted on the Tompkins County homepage, you can find out there is a website that has been established. Again, it doesn't give you all the answers right now, but I suspect as this project is fleshed out over the course of the next few weeks, we'll learn more. It is funded by the federal government. It's a 2020 grant that was approved, Federal Transit Administration Integrated Mobility Innovation Demonstration Program grant. And a whole lot of groups are involved in this. TCAT's involved in it. Go Ithaca is involved in it. County government is involved in it. Gadabout Transportation, Human Services Coalition, Center for Community Transportation, and numerous other groups. It kind of surprised me when I found the release last Friday, I think it was, when it came out. I had not been aware that this was in the planning, so I want to learn more. And I hope that there will be some kind of tutorial available for you and all the rest of us.
Yeah, because even if you get a good turnout on the 15th, maybe 30 people know how to use it that way.
Yeah, it's. I think the rollout is the 17th. 17th from 4 to 6 p.m.
If there are no other questions or comments for Bob, thank you much. Emergency planning and preparedness, Mark.
Sure, thanks, Rorden. So our subcommittee is continuing discussions centered around equitable provision of emergency services and specifically ambulance service throughout the county. And right now it's a little discombobulated. So response times vary throughout the county, and also by the nature of the beast, funding varies. So some municipalities have ambulance services that are supported by their taxpayers, and they provide mutual aid across the town boundaries. We have three municipal ambulance services and one private. So, Dan Lamb brought this forward. Dryden has an ambulance service. So we're looking at ways to make both the service and the funding of the service more equitable. So one idea that's out there, and is Dan knows a lot more about this, and Rorden too, than I do, but other states have, and Iowa is one, have countywide ambulance taxes and administer ambulance service at a county level. So I've reported on this before, that discussion's continuing. There's been a lot of, I had a good discussion last week. Corsa came out to the Caroline Town Hall and we chatted for about an hour, and that was one of the items we discussed. And then, and Dan Klein has called a meeting to focus on this next week. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Rorden. Rorden's on the committee, as people know. So.
No, actually, I was going to ask Dan if he has a proposed venue for next Wednesday.
Yes.
Or if it's going to be all remote.
It's going to be a hybrid meeting. It's going to be in the old jail conference room in the basement, or via Zoom, and I guess I need to send that information out. I will do that today or tomorrow.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dan.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
Any comments, questions for Mark or Dan or myself? Yeah, Joel.
What's the status of the state's action on this matter? It talked about becoming a state mandate that counties provide the service.
I'll let Rorden comment more. I don't think it's a state mandate to provide the service. I think it's a little different than that, but do you want to elaborate on that, Rorden?
Yeah, last I knew, and I haven't looked in a few days, last I knew it was included in the governor's budget to have EMS mandated as an essential service. I think it survived the Senate's version, but did not survive the Assembly's version. That's the last I saw. So there has been a development, which I'm kind of chasing down a little bit. There was an article forwarded to me a couple of weeks ago from the New York Daily News where FDNY Commissioner Tucker had made some very alarming statements about the status of EMS in the New York metro area. So I actually spoke to someone today who recently had a meeting with him, and I'm going to see if I can't get some FaceTime with the commissioner, because one of the things that we've talked about over the years is the need for Albany to begin to look at providing a funding stream to municipal ambulance, probably most easily done by sending money to the counties and then letting each county determine the best way to spend that money, because each county has slightly different issues or needs. But the pushback has always been that members of the legislature don't think it's a problem, and B, the downstate contingent in particular is not aware that it's a problem. So if it is now actually a problem downstate, I think that maybe that changes the calculus slightly. So those are conversations that need to be had, and who knows how long it takes to have those conversations.
And in any event, in the meantime, we're acting like, well, let's do what needs doing anyway, regardless of what the state says.
Right. Well, I mean, in the meantime, again, our issues are not Westchester's issues, and our issues are not Chautauqua County's issues. Our issues are unique to Tompkins County, and we have to resolve them, or quite frankly, we are already seeing, as we've discussed kind of ad nauseum, we're already seeing increased response times. There have been some developments in the last couple of months, which I think, frankly, City of Ithaca leadership should be aware of. There's some real danger to the provision of ambulance service in the city. So those are all things we're going to discuss next week and ongoing.
If I may note, I did update members of council about the discussion on this last time. So City of Ithaca leadership at least has a better idea of these issues than it did previously.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob.
Again, the situation, as was said, that New York City's issues are not Westchester's issues, are not Tompkins County's issues. Well, by that same token, Dryden's issues are not Ithaca's issues, are not Danby's issues. So it's a very unique situation, and it's going to be a very tough nut to crack to figure out how we accomplish what we want to accomplish to help out Dryden, help out Ulysses and Trumansburg, to help out the municipal ambulance services without, at the same time, gifting money to a private ambulance provider, which is doing a majority of the runs in Tompkins County. As we know, we really can't gift a private company taxpayer dollars, but by the same token, they are so involved in the overall mix that it's going to really be a tough issue to resolve. And I look forward to us all working together as municipalities to try to do that. But it's probably going to be one of the toughest decisions that we are going to be confronting in this decade, is to figure out how to do that. I don't know how to do that. And maybe we can all put our heads together and do it. And next Wednesday's meeting is a good place to start, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. Thanks, Bob. Sorry. Go ahead, Mark.
No, that's okay. I acknowledge Bob's comment, and that's exactly the challenge. Yep.
Ron,
Rob, you had a hand up? Yeah, go ahead.
Has info been sent out about that meeting? I don't think I've seen.
Yeah, it's and I'll let Dan answer. It's a meeting that's kind of been pushed together from the subcommittee, from the emergency preparedness subcommittee, in an effort to discuss directly with county leadership some of the ideas that are percolating and how to move forward.
Okay, so it wasn't a meeting to start bringing in the other municipalities who certainly are going to want to weigh in and be impacted. It's not that meeting.
It's Dan's. I don't want to speak to your intentions. From my perspective, it's to include the agency level members, so Dryden, Trumansburg, Groton, plus subcommittee, plus county administration.
That sounds fine. Certainly Town of Ithaca wants to be at a meeting when it's the right meeting, but this might not be the right meeting.
Yeah, I'll just say, Dan Lamb requested this meeting and I asked who should be there and he gave a list, but as far as I'm concerned, the more the merrier if anybody else wants to come.
Shouldn't Bangs be invited too?
Well, yes and no. So we through the efforts of Mike Steitley at DOER, we had very large, long-standing, long-running committee meetings, which led to the Rapid Medical Response Program being introduced. Mm-hmm. So we're not necessarily looking to reinvent the wheel. Dan Lamb was hoping to be here, I think. In fact, he may join us as soon as I'm finished talking here in about 4 minutes. but the real concern at the moment, and again, I hate to speak for other people, but the real concern at the moment is particularly in the case of Dryden, where 40% of their calls are now going outside of district. Mm-hmm. We're getting to the stage where taxpayers are starting to ask where their tax dollars are going and why those tax dollars are going to subsidize service elsewhere. So that's kind of part of the reason that Dan was pushing for this conversation. It's separate from, it's certainly connected to, but separate from the overall conversation of how do we make sure that EMS is provided throughout the region. And Jason's here, of course. He can speak to that.
And that's exactly what we're concerned with. So, and because our ambulance is also getting pulled into other counties. So, we it's just it's not fair. So I would say, I suppose we could put an ambulance tariff on Cortland, but
Mm-hmm.
But seriously, no, that's one of the big things is because we have, we think provide, about well over $1 million to our ambulance service every year.
Okay, well, yeah, Bob.
I just wanted to say, I hope that this meeting next Wednesday will also touch, at least in part, on the question of what I brought up earlier in the meeting about the rapid medical response system. And to respond to Dan Klein, yes, I was originally very skeptical of cost sharing when I thought that it would unfairly penalize some of the smaller communities. But Dan came up with a very innovative option. I think it was option 6, as I recall, last year. We didn't need to use it because the state grant came in, but Dan did a good job of making it more equitable. And again, if we have some idea early on in the year what our obligation may be in 2026, I think that's something the town boards can put into their budgets when those budgets get ready to be drafted in the fall. And, Enfield can probably spend $10,000 toward RMR, probably can't spend 50 or 60,000. So that's the question that we have to come up with. But again, Dan, thank you for your creativity last year, and I hope we'll have a further discussion of that in the near future.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments related to emergency planning and preparedness? Okay, well, stay tuned. Next, we have, we have an amended resolution, which we would need to introduce. We also had a resolution in the agenda packet. Both resolutions, although they are different, would support expanding the membership of the Board of Directors of the Tompkins County IDA. And Bob, I guess you would like to introduce the amended resolution, correct?
Yes, I will defer to the parliamentarian who says that we have to introduce this over again. And I can read the whole thing. A lot of it is redundant to what we said earlier, but there have been new developments that have occurred since our January meeting. And we thank the county legislature for coming to support this idea. And they came up with some creative language that I wanted to put into the resolution. So do you want me to read the entire resolution right now? I can.
Can we screen share it?
So I can screen share the resolution for everyone. And
That's good, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
And then maybe Bob can point out what's different.
Sure.
With the screen view.
And before we substitute the resolution, we'll need a mover and a seconder to take the original resolution off the table.
I will move the amended resolution.
I think we need to move to remove the original resolution first, Bob.
Okay,
Yes,
we'll move the
correct.
original resolution.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to remove the original resolution from consideration. Any comments or questions or discussion? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And then I think, if I'm not mistaken, Bob, you'll have to move to introduce the new resolution.
I'll move the new resolution, which has the same title, supporting expanded membership for the Board of Directors, Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and I'm just watching body language at the dais to make sure we haven't messed anything up.
Yep, that's great.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to introduce the amended resolution. Any comments or questions on that?
Ready for the screen share?
If we can get either to screen share, or I can tell you what the changes are from the original resolution that we have withdrawn from consideration.
Taylor, are we able to share that?
I think we're working on it.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you make it bigger?
The initial whereases are the same as the original. What's on my screen right now is the same as was before, so we'd have to scroll down. Okay. All right, now the paragraph, it says, whereas any expansion of TCIDA board membership would require New York State home rule legislation, an action which the Tompkins County Legislature needed to initiate, and this is new, this next whereas on February 18th, 2025, the Tompkins County Legislature adopted and forwarded to state legislators a resolution urging adoption of said home rule legislation. The Tompkins County Legislature resolving further, quote, and this is from their resolution, that the appointing body of the TCIDA shall seek to fill at-large seats with a diverse representative board, including the following representatives from as many of the following as possible: both urban and rural areas of the county, a member from the Ithaca Area Economic Development Board of Directors nominated by its chair, municipal taxing jurisdictions, school districts, organized labor, finance and banking, development and construction, and economic development appointed in a manner consistent with New York state law and local practices, close quote. And to the next whereas, The Tompkins County Council of Governments believes the language embodied in the Tompkins County Legislature's resolution provides a reasonable compromise, allowing varied community interests valuable input in TCIDA decisions. Now, therefore, be it resolved.
Scroll up a little bit.
Scroll a bit, please. Or I can read it from my text.
Or both, but there you go.
Okay. Resolved that the Tompkins County Council of Governments recommends that the New York State Legislature enact home rule legislation that would expand the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency Board of Directors from 7 to 9 members, with at-large membership drawn from the diverse community of interests identified by the Tompkins County Legislature in its adopted resolution of February 18th. At-large membership to include representatives from both urban and rural areas of the county. And it goes on to a next page. And I have it on the script here. Resolved further, the copies of the resolution shall be forwarded to New York State Senator Leo Webb, New York State Assembly Member Anna Kellis, and New York State Governor Kathy Hochul. And that's essentially recognizes that the county legislature has ratified this proposal and has sent it on to Albany for adoption. And I hope the state legislature will see fit to approve this home rule legislation. Any further comments from anyone?
So I presume that you concluded, if not others, that the county legislature's language adequately addresses the concerns of the rural municipalities about not participation.
There was concern at the January meeting, as you'll recall, including from the City of Ithaca's representative on TCOG, that they didn't want to have a change that might forfeit their seat as an at-large member, and I respect that. A lot of IDA development projects affect the City of Ithaca, and the City of Ithaca should be represented on that IDA board. School districts want to be included as well. Rural towns want to be included. Organized labor wants to be included. In fact, one member of the legislature was very insistent when this resolution came before the county legislature on the 18th of February that labor's seat be preserved on the IDA. And I don't think there's probably probably not going to be any action by the county legislature that would delete that seat from organized labor. But I think it's best, in view of the concerns that were voiced at the last meeting here, that that groups, towns, school districts, labor, we all put in applications, and then it's up to the county legislature to decide which people should sit on the IDA in those at-large seats, and I think that's a fair compromise.
Other comments? Yeah, go ahead. Again, I can't see the oval well, so if anyone is raising a hand in chambers, please just jump in.
All right. I can't escape the feeling that this feels very redundant with what the county legislature has already put to the state. If we just want to, as an organization, like if we want TCOG to just sign on to what the county legislature is doing, that's fine. Yeah, I think that's my main thought here. I do appreciate that my concerns from last time about different appointment structures for different representatives were addressed.
Other thoughts, anyone? Yeah, Bob.
I would just respond that I don't think it does any harm that we show intermunicipal support for this legislation when it goes to our state legislators and to the governor. that it's not just the county's initiative, but it's also grassroots initiative from the local governments. And that's why I retooled this resolution and resubmitted it.
Anyone else have a thought? Well, if not, we have a motion which has been seconded to approve this resolution as amended. I'll give one more chance in case anyone has any additional thoughts. So if not, then I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving this resolution, this amended resolution as brought in, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? And it carries. Thank you for your work on this, Bob.
You're welcome.
Next meeting agenda items. I know that Mark will have something hopefully from about 911 addressing. Caitlin may or may not have more information for us. We will likely have an update on all things emergency services. Anything else that we know we want to discuss next meeting? If not, then I will call for adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Caitlin wants to adjourn. Do we have a second? Thanks, Mark. If there's no objection, I will stand us as adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the sunny afternoon.
Yeah, thanks.